Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here and checking out the series. You know what to do. You like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. I put out 3 new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with all of your favorite artists. One of my favorite artists back with a new record, Alt J. It's called The Dream. Gus is on the line. Hello, man.
Hey, how's it going, Kyle?
Doing great over here. Good to see you. And
You too.
first off, congratulations on this record. I mean, this is what, album number 4, and this might be your best yet.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, we're super stoked with how it all went. You know, I think taking our time with it was a really good decision for us, even though we know that our fans were hungry for that new album, but hopefully they're feeling satisfied now.
Yeah, well, I know I absolutely am. And I also know, I don't know if this question's going to work because a lot of times, most times even, songs and albums are just jammed into existence.
Mm.
Here's the structure and here's the songs. But as you're going into this, as you're working on this record over the past few years, do you get a sense of who you wanted to be on this album?
Yeah, I think it kind of became clearer towards the end. It's weird, like I think we kind of like finished the album in June 2021, kind of mastering it then. And then as the end of the year kind of came around, we were all watching the Beatles Get Back documentary. And I think seeing the way they were making music in the studio then, kind of recording live takes, almost like rehearsal takes, really. We were like, damn, like it feels like we were sort of inspired by that, even though we'd already finished the album. I think we did try to strip this album back a bit and make it feel more like an album that was just, the 3 of us kind of playing with mics on, even though that isn't how it was made. But I think in the past we've gone down the route of layering and building songs up so into these giant kind of teetering baroque structures, which is great, and people like that about our sound. But I think it was nice this time to make it. It's almost like Alt J does a garage rock or garage band album. So yeah, that's kind of like, I feel like, actually moving forwards, that will be more like the approach we take, I think.
It's been interesting to see the ripple effects of that documentary, by the way. Like, and I'm
Mm.
curious, like, how that's ultimately gonna show its influence, because because we were, I mean, if you're in the music world, if you're in, an artist or the business or whatever, like, you paid attention to it, and I think everyone was just kind of like,
Yeah,
at the whole,
yeah.
the
I thought I was a Beatles fan before I watched it, and I didn't realize how much more of a Beatles fan I could become after having watched it.
well, taking on the McCartney dynamic, you're playing more bass this time around, right?
I am. It's true. In a cringe-worthy turn, I'm even using a Hofner violin bass, a la Paul McCartney. It kind of started because we were writing the song Philadelphia for the album, which we sort of thought had this Beatlesy sound, and so we thought, well, let's hire one of those basses and just play around with it. And I liked it so much, Joe ended up buying me one as a sort of end of album present, which was really nice of him. And I love it, and I'm playing it on stage, and yeah, it's just fun to try a new thing. And I think it's that's how you keep yourself interested in we've been a band for like 14 years at this point, and it's nice to still know that there are new things we can do, pick up new instruments and try new things out.
Yeah, for you, I mean, multi-instrumentalist as you are, have you noticed like exactly what the new dynamic that might have given to the songs?
I don't know. I think it's interesting because my main instrument is the piano. I'm so used to kind of like playing multiple each hand doing different things and playing chords and kind of like contrapuntal kind of things. And actually, what's nice about the bass is that it's stripped all the way back to like one musical line, and it's how you can be creative just using just single notes in a sequence rather than chords or rather than complex kind of piano style things. So I quite like that. It's like going back to square one. I'm finding that a fun challenge.
Yeah, I tried bass for a little bit years and years ago, and it turns out that it was almost too simple for what I want, what I needed at the time. Like, I
Yeah.
know you can go into tool riffs or try to play chords or something like that, and it's all very different. But I have nothing but respect for people who really are great at bass.
Oh yeah, me too. I mean, I think I'm getting quite good, and I watch another band, and I'm like, oh no, that's what a good bassist looks like. Like I'm watching, Portugal the Man every night at the moment, and Zach, their bassist, is just amazing, just amazing to watch on stage. He's just you know, from every point of view,
Yeah.
he's an inspiration.
Yeah. Well, on the other side of things, what you all are doing vocally on this record too, it has to be talked about because, going from these dark cinematic moments like as the record opens with Bane to the doo-wop sounds that you've got going on of Walk a Mile. Of course, you've got the opera voice on there too. What I mean, so much is represented on what you're doing vocally. Is that just like sort of throwing spaghetti at the wall, or were you like looking to tackle some of these things?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like we're quite lucky in that most of the spaghetti we throw tends to actually stick, I find. I think it's, and Joe just is very good at kind of having these, he has these mad ideas, which, almost always, my initial reaction is like, no way. Like the opera singer thing, I was like, oh God, no, not an opera singer, please. But actually, he really wanted to do it, and she came in, and it sounded great, and we managed to use it in a way that was less kind of like Freddie Mercury Barcelona, and more like we'd actually taken a sample from some opera and kind of chopped it up, and were playing it back on a tape recorder. But it was, yeah, I think it's just fun because sometimes you need to let the song lead where it wants to go, and we're always up for following it and seeing where it takes us. Basically, nothing's really off limits with us, I think.
Yeah, and plus you use these other voices too. You've got family members and everybody else.
Yeah.
And what I loved about that is it sort of gives these songs a three-dimensional quality. I don't know if that makes sense. I didn't realize it before, but the song from it goes from being something that the narrator is putting out to almost a bit of a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun to kind of like try and make the songs into more like three-dimensional images you can almost like look into, like a kind of diorama sort of thing. I don't know. And I think if using friends and family members, for us, I think it makes it feel more special for us. And I think we always talk about this idea of like the bay leaf when you're cooking a stew or something. You put in this bay leaf and you can't really say what it is it does, but it just kind of adds that depth of flavor. And I think it's for us, it's just nice to know that these people are people we know and people we love. And I think in a sort of hard to define way that filters through to fans and to the listeners as well.
Unless you accidentally end up with the bay leaf in your mouth and it does nothing but piss you off. It's for me. So I don't have that problem with your album, by the way.
Good. I always quite like getting the bay leaf. You can sort of lick the gravy off it and put it to one side. It's like you've won the competition.
Maybe I'll try to. I'm not coming at it from a positive moment here. That's
embrace the bay.
Yeah, we mentioned 3D qualities, and I meant to actually say something about this at the beginning because you are on tour with Portugal the Man, and talk about 3D. I mean, can you talk about the cube thing that you all are playing in? Like, what inspired your live setup, the visual aspect?
Well, we've worked with Fragment 9, our lighting people, for pretty much since the start, maybe probably big time since the second album, I guess. But even from the first album, Jeremy was working with us, and we always like kind of leave it up to them. But I think in a way, our approach to onstage lights and production has always been that we don't really enjoy being like front men on stage or like quote unquote rock stars. We're not very good at the whole kind of like, we don't feel very comfortable sort of like working the crowd and all that kind of thing. So it's kind of nice to let the lights be the front man of the band, and in this case, literally that's the case because we're standing for a lot of the gig behind this like very fine mesh screen that's forms part of a sort of cuboid that's being projected on all around us. And it's really amazing because you can do so many cool effects with it. You can have us surrounded by like burning candles, like we're sort of in the middle of some kind of like dark altar, or you can have us in a sort of tank filling up with water. There's just no limit to the kind of fun things you can do with it. And people are really liking it, and it's fun to play in too. It took a bit of getting used to but I think now we're into it, and I just like seeing people's reaction to it.
Yeah, that's the frontman part. So I should never expect to see any of you all like putting your leg up on the monitor, thrusting with the guitar.
Well, it's funny actually. I've said this to a few people. Like, since I started playing bass, I genuinely feel like I'm in a band now. Like, it's funny being a keyboardist. It's always a bit awkward, keyboard is not really like one of your classic, it's not the drums or the guitar, is it? Let's be honest. So actually, when I put the bass on for those few songs, I'm like, oh yeah, now I'm a band man, it's quite fun.
Just remember that monitor is not too far away, and it's just a lift of the leg. That's all you got to do.
It's comfortable,
Getting back to the record then, the characters are always so fascinating, who you all are singing about, what you all are singing about, and the ones that do populate this album. Do you all look at it as character studies? Because you know, finding who these people are, it kind of amazes me where that must come from for you all.
Sorry, they're doing some like building work above my hotel room. I think. I hope it's not too disturbing for you.
No, it's fine. I can't hear it.
Okay. Yeah, I think with the characters, you know, we often talk about this concept of like dramatic monologues, I guess, which are sort of like poems from the point of view of a kind of narrator who's not the author. And you know, it's fun because I think, you know, we know that our fans really like to sort of dissect our lyrics and, you know, take these kind of things and run with them, really, whether it's doing art or just like, you know, kind of getting inspired by the stories we start telling. And it's difficult because, you know, with a song you can only do so much. You know, sometimes it's only a few words in a song, but it's nice to have them as kind of jumping off points. And yeah, I mean, you know, we don't sit around kind of like, you know, building up backstories for these characters or anything like that. But I think sometimes, you know, sometimes we take real people, sometimes we invent people, and you know, I think it's just a way of writing that we enjoy, I suppose, ultimately.
Yeah, it's
a bit of a rambling answer. Sorry.
No, it seems like you could get so close to movie work. I mean, you know, we've talked about, you know, you all doing, you know, cinematic style of music for a long time, but actually taking that over the line for what you guys are doing and putting these characters on the screen, or even, you know, in comic form, you know, that it seems like that would be sort of easy for you guys, the way you do explore people.
That's a great idea, actually. I'm picturing it on the merch stand now. The comic book, the Alt J graphic novel. Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, Joe certainly is very interested in directing. He recently directed our video for Hard Drive Gold, and you know, I think is looking to direct future things. So, and I know that his dream would be to make a film one day. So, I think it will happen one of these days, definitely, for him.
Yeah. And that's
maybe I can help.
Hard Drive Gold, a great song. With one leg up. That's but that's a good example. Hard Drive Gold. And I was also looking at Happier When You're Gone, because as I understand, I mean, this is sort of a reaction, right? The other side of the story to the famous Hey Joe song.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I think it's yeah, that's a great song for that reason, I think, because I'm speaking as a listener to Joe's lyrics, I guess. Yeah, it's because so many of these, you know, it's not to take away from Hey Joe or its amazingness as a song, but I think when you do dissect some of these kind of classics of rock, you know, they are actually quite sort of male, quite chauvinistic, you know, sort of songs with quite sort of dark, quite a darkness to them if you really read the lyrics. So you know, I think we thought it'd be fun to kind of present the female point of view there, and that's what happened.
Yeah. The other side of that, and I'm going to take liberties with lyrics too. So, you know, speak to what you can on this question here, but you know, the themes do tend, not all the time, but often enough, to go towards death in various different ways. It seems there is a penchant for that darkness. Where does that come from? Because, you know, looking at Losing My Mind, I mean, I don't know if you guys are true crime fans, but as we talk about sort of that serial killer-esque type of thing happening there, and even in Philadelphia, which ends up this sort of detective story type of a deal.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, Joe's a big fan of like true crime, listens to a lot of true crime podcasts and stuff. I mean, death has always been a big thing in our lyrics, even going back to the first album. And I think it's just trying to find unusual ways to sing about it. I mean, so take Tarot, for example, from our first album, you know, this idea of these two war photographers who were in love and both sort of died tragic deaths doing their job. It's you know, and I think the fact is that we're just getting older. You know, Joe and I both have kids now, and I think you just, you know, you start to think more and more about death. Ultimately, it's a bit of a sad fact. I think in terms of the, you know, to take Losing My Mind, which you just mentioned as an example, you know, there's lyrics in that, you know, like this chorus, you know, you and I cut from the same cloth, and I think there's actually, you can read that in a way of kind of being like, well, you know, this modern popularity, it feels like true crime and sort of serial killer stuff is more popular than ever, and you know, we you know, we're all sort of like disgusted by these people who take a sick pleasure from killing people, but in a way we're also taking a sick pleasure from reading or watching or listening to things about it. So, you know, I suppose that chorus is kind of asking, how different are we, the fans of true crime, from the people committing the crimes, you know?
It's very voyeuristic in that sense, on our side of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a car crash that you, of course, will always look at, or something like that. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So you've got it. You're out on the road. You're promoting this album, but we're also 10th anniversary of the first album that you just mentioned with An Awesome Wave. Do you find a way to get the celebrations in to celebrate a decade?
Yeah, it's a tricky one because we don't want to kind of like take away from this new album, but I think perhaps towards the end of the year we will do something a bit more awesome wavy. Nothing we've talked about various plans and we're not quite sure what it's going to look like yet. Whether it will be a special edition, whether it will be a concert, whether it will be, who knows, a graphic novel. But I think that it's just, but ultimately we've never really stopped celebrating an awesome wave. I think some bands, like, I don't know. I watched Kings of Leon play a few years ago at a festival, and they were like my favorite band growing up. And they played like one song from the first album in their whole set, which was fine. I mean, I love that first album so much. That was the album that really kind of changed my life musically. But we've never really been like that. We've always played like the lion's share of the songs from An Awesome Wave every night in our set because we know the fans love them and we love playing them. So I suppose in a way the celebration has never really stopped since we were touring that album for the first time. So we don't feel there's too much pressure to kind of like make a big song and dance about playing songs from An Awesome Wave.
Well, if there was a graphic novel, I'd be first in line to get that. I'm telling you. So
great, thank you.
I will take my money, as the internet phrase goes. That's we'll go. I love The Dream. This is such a great record. I love what you guys are doing, and again, I've had so much fun. This is one of the records that I call onion skin because I just keep peeling it away and finding something new every single time. Congrats on this, man, and thanks for taking the time to talk about it as well.
Well, thank you so much for it's clear from talking to you that you've really got to know the album, and that means a lot. So thank you very much, and it was nice to chat to you. I feel I've got some new ideas now. I'm inspired.
All right, man. Take care out there, and we'll see you around soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Kyle.
All right, bye.